Thursday, July 10th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today we are talking about conservation. It's a conversation about conservation. Why do we protect stuff around us, the nature around us? How do we protect it? Where does your municipality come into it? And who's doing what in this field of Newfoundland and Labrador? All right, when we talk conservation, what comes to mind for you? Right, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about wetlands, wilderness? What does it mean when you think protected areas? And what do you think the role is for municipalities and governments? I've got folks here for the discussion today. Right? We've got a few folks, someone on the line, and also we've got three here in the studio. But where you come into this, if you have thoughts for us as we're running through this show, email us, thesignal@cbc.ca, and you can also call us 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Here with me in studio, we've got Deputy Mayor Sheila O'Leary from St. John's. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you're also is environmental lead. Is that
sustainability lead? Yeah, I know the names keep changing all the time, but they mean the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, I've been doing that for probably about 2 terms, I believe now, and but I've been a long time environmental advocate. You know that's been
just a bit, just for a little while.
Yeah, exactly. Over my 14-year term on council, for sure.
14 years on council.
I know it's amazing. Just blink and it's there. But you know what? There's been really great strides happened during that time. I have to say, when I first entered in, it was questionable for me. Yeah. But there's been a lot of strides made, certainly.
Because when I started here, you were new, and that was 14 years ago. So there we go. Yeah. Same amount of time. Yeah. We also have Executive Director of the Stewardship Association of Municipalities, Zach Burrows, here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Thanks for coming in. Tell just briefly, Stewardship Association of Municipalities. A lot of words. What does it mean?
Yeah, let's go for SAM.
Sam. So when we say Sam, it's not a person. It's this thing.
I've been referred to as Sam.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, Zach Burrows. So we're the Stewardship Association of Municipalities, SAM. We're an environmental non-government organization that works across the province, helping municipalities secure, enhance, and restore important wildlife habitat. So simply working with municipalities, helping them conserve the environment. And stewardship, that's a big part of it, that ethic, that action, generating that and encouraging that type of activity.
Excellent. All right, thanks for that. And I mean, there's lots we can kind of dig into there, obviously, through the course of the full 55 minutes. We also have Michelle Ungurain from Ducks Unlimited Canada. I've been hearing Ducks Unlimited I think it's like one of the things that I've heard in my life for the whole time. Like it's one of these bits that's always kind of in your ear about Ducks Unlimited. Tell us about who you are and what you do with them.
Well, I'm a conservation program specialist, so most of the work I've been doing the past 2 years is working with new municipalities to find out what wetlands they have on the landscape, what they do, and then what they can do to help protect them so that they can provide the services that they do.
Why'd you want to get into this line of work?
Well, I had an office job for about 15 years when I lived in Halifax. And started fishing again. And then from that, I thought, well, it'd be really good if I could get paid to get out of the office. Yeah. And, try to do some good and protect the environment. So that was the drive, and, got lucky enough to get a student summer job 10 years ago. And 10 years later, here I am back with Ducks Unlimited again.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, congrats on that. And it's neat to go with let's move from this office job to something else, right? Very cool. Yeah. Also, those are the 3 folks we have in studio. On the line, we've got Graham Wood, co-chair of Wilderness and Ecological Reserve Advisory Council. Graham, how you doing?
How you doing, Adam?
Good.
It's good to be back again.
Yeah. Remind folks about the Wilderness and Ecological Reserve Advisory Council.
Well, we're a group of 11 people that are appointed by Cabinet to advise the Minister on protected areas, terrestrial areas in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So how's that going?
Well, it's been a long road.
Yeah.
As Sheila knows. Hi, Sheila.
Hi. Nice to hear you.
Yep. As you know, we've been at this for a long time, but I suppose the latest news started in 2020 when we released our document, The Home for Nature, and which outlined the plan of 27 actual proposed reserves, and then there are 6 proposed traditional reserves, were a mixture of reserve and parts of areas that we wanted to protect that had geological issues or geological claims on for mining claims and so on. So since 2020, we've been looking at kind of targeting the main ones, at least the start ones. Indian Arm Brook was one that was proposed initially by the Rod and Gun Club, Lewisport Rod and Gun Club, or Notre Dame Rod and Gun Club. And so we've had public hearings on that, and we've written a report to the minister and sent the report off to councils that are in the area. And the other ones that we've looked at, like the recent one now, is Ripple Pond and Halls Gullies, which is on the Avalon. And we're looking at, we've had meetings on that already, public hearings on that. We have Fushu Bay, which is on the south coast, Conn River North, Watts Point Extension up on the Great Northern Peninsula, Cape Norman, Cape St. George's, plus a myriad of others that are around different areas of Newfoundland, like the eastern part of the Great Northern Peninsula, Canada Bay area. So Soufflets, and Boiling Brook, and there's a lot of areas that we haven't started on those yet, but there's just so much to do, and it takes a long time to get through the public hearing process.
So that sounds like a whole lot of effort and a lot of promise for conservation. How do we stack up in Newfoundland and Labrador compared to the rest of the country?
Well, we're the second lowest in the country, so we're way behind what was proposed and what was agreed on by the provincial governments going back as far as Clyde Wells, and up until recently that we had agreed, the provincial government, I mean, I shouldn't say we're at, because we're a volunteer group, but the governments have agreed to protect 30% by 2030. We were supposed to be at 20% by 2020, or 17% by 2020, and we're not near. We're about half that right now. So we're well behind the plans that governments have signed on to with the federal government.
Before I go back to the crowd here in studio, why is that?
That's a very good question, because it took it was quite a controversial time in 2020 when Dr. Montevecchi and Victoria Neville resigned. Victoria was co-chair with myself, and Bill was been a member for probably over 20 years. Resigned because the government hadn't released the report for Home for Nature, and then finally the minister of the day decided to release the report. But he didn't release the report under the government, I'll say the government logo was released by WIRAC. So we released the report to get discussions going, and we had a long period of engagement on Engage NL, where we got feedback from a number of, from areas all over the province, really, not Labrador, because Labrador is a different entity in terms of land claims and so on. But, I think we had over 70 new areas proposed by various communities and organizations and individuals, areas that they saw were important to protect. So there's a tremendous amount of interest in it. And I think it started off in a little bit of a wrong foot, because there was a lot of misinformation happening at the time in 2020 when we proposed the document. And we have the legislation which was proposed in 1980, and it really needs to be updated. In fact, we met with the minister recently to look at, the possibility of getting the act, I'll say, amended. So really, that's kind of where we are. It's a long road, long process, and I think the key thing that I think we all realized, and Sheila might agree with that, I'm not sure, but I mean, in 2020 when COVID hit, a lot of people couldn't get together. So a lot of people spent time outdoors and traveling around this beautiful province. And, people started to realize that we have such, and we advertise it worldwide, as you know, pristine environments and areas that allow people to move fairly freely. I mean, if you go to Nova Scotia and PEI, I mean, if you move, you have to cross a fence. Here you can be like Justin Barber, take off in Clarenville and walk out in Port aux Basques. So
Yeah, you never know where Justin's going to pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Graham. Let me just So thanks for painting that picture. Right, like it's you talked about the efforts. You talked about where the hope was and the promise was for us to be, and the fact we're the province. When I say we, I mean Newfoundland and Labrador, for all of us living here together on these lands, right? Where the thought was where folks would be with it, and the fact nowhere close, but lots of effort. And then I've got folks here who are all doing their own things. Right, and there's successes with that. There are challenges with that. But let's just build on what some of Graham is saying, and to choose your own adventure. If you want to talk, but anything just talk to me about some of the work that you folks have been doing. Deputy Mayor Leary, Sheila, we'll talk about you first, because this all started with me seeing a picture of you, like in a wetland or something, and I was like, hey, can we do a show on this? So tell me about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the opportunity. Look, well, first of all, a huge shout out to all the groups that are doing the hard work.
Yeah.
Stewardship Association, Ducks Unlimited. All of these organizations are really doing the hard work. And yes, it does take an incredible amount of effort and time to manifest successes. But I'm so pleased to see the City of St. John's expand its stewardship agreement with Stewardship Association municipalities. We have a long-standing relationship. We have a stewardship agreement of what people may know as Lundrigan's Marsh. It's in a heavy industrialized kind of area there off White Hills Road. But that we have an MOU, an understanding, an agreement, a contract ultimately with SAM to conserve, to maintain, to preserve that area because it has ecological significance. And of course, the effort is, in collaboration with SAM, we had the opportunity to expand that stewardship agreement. Now, I'll just rewind just a little bit here because there's some history behind this as well, too, because it was a personal project and effort of my own to ensure that we somehow conserve the top of Southside Hills. And there were many, many people that came before me. Tom Cairns, you might remember the well-known engineer Tom Cairns, who wanted to do a rock arena. But there was a secondary component to that, which was to have a Southside Hilltop Park. And he and many other partners, including former Mayor Shani Duff, Diana Baird, Bill Stoyles, Benny Malone, all these people who were doing a lot of ecological work around Waterford River, the cleaning of the water, our water treatment plant came out of a lot of the advocacy around that. But one component of that was an effort to try to create an area, a naturalized park on the top of Southside Hills. So when I first was elected on council, and being somebody who's very ecologically minded and an environmental activist, Tom came to me and said, look, this kind of never went anywhere. They did a lot of work on it, but you know what, at the time it just went fallow. And so I took his file and continued to try to lobby whatever way I possibly could to see how can we conserve that really ecologically sensitive area. I love it up there on the Southside Hills in particular. You know, I've hiked there many times. The East Coast Trail intersects there. We know lots of people who love to go up and go swimming there. But it's just a really beautiful, pristine area that not a lot of people think about because it's the opposite side of the harbor. In any case, it was always a passion project for me to try to take that baton from Tom Cairns and company to try to see how we could do that. And you know what? It was about 10 years worth of work, I have to say. And then comes Stewardship Association for Municipalities, dealing with the City of St. John's, and really coming to us and saying, hey, we'd love to expand your stewardship areas, and really doing a study. And I'll certainly let Zach talk to that process. But what ended up happening was we had identified, and the city came into an agreement with our council and executive staff to expand it to the top of Southside Hills and a portion of Cape Spear. I'm so ecstatic that this is finally realized. So when Graham talks about, or you talk about, the length of time that it takes to do this incredibly important work, because once it's gone, there's no turning back. And in a city, we are constantly weighing out development and conservation. And
yeah, we're in a time of we're in a housing crisis. Where you talk about, you hear the Prime Minister talk about elbows up and build and these national projects and these efforts, but at the same time, it's this conversation today of like, how do we and I think it all fits together. Obviously, like how do folks build responsibly to meet population demands, growth demands, but also how do you look at areas that need to be protected in order to protect them before they're gone, and which all fits in. If you want to talk wildfires, if you want to talk flooding, all this stuff fits together under responsible municipal planning and management, right?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned in the prelude, we've come a long way. I mean, people forgot about the Environmental Advisory Committee when I was first elected to council. Now we have a team and we have an incredible group of people who are working to create more sustainable, not only housing, to ensure people's basements don't get flooded, all of that flood mitigation. But in that conversation is about the protection of the environment that is so crucial and so important because it cradles all of us. Because if we don't have that, then you know what, we're going to be in big trouble. So that's where these kind of relationship building with organizations like SAM, like Ducks, like other organizations, I think are extremely important for municipalities.
Go for it, Zach.
Yeah, especially and just to go off what Sheila's saying, especially in municipalities where there's so much different jurisdictional oversight, where you have federal areas, provincial areas, municipal areas, it's important to engage all these players because those are the ones who have their rights holders, their stakeholders, they have some interest in that area. So it is important to engage all those people. How do you eat an elephant? I was talking about, you eat it one bite at a time.
Yeah.
It's an approach that it needs those partnerships, especially in our province where there's so much Crown land. And if you look at maybe how we are managed versus other Atlantic Canadian provinces, a lot of Atlantic Canadian provinces have private land. In our province, it's a lot of Crown land. So that's provincial land it's within municipalities. So I think within our province, don't quote me on this number, but it's about 70% of our province is Crown land.
Yeah.
And a lot of that Crown land falls within municipalities. So there's two jurisdictions at play here that have a right to the land, the province, because it's Crown land, but then also the municipality through development regulations, land use planning, and municipal zoning. So there's really important to bring both those entities together, and then how do you also support it through all the other nonprofits and different partners.
Michelle, what does this when we look at conservation work? I look out the window here at CBC. I see trees. There's trees across the way there behind the health sciences. We're surrounded by forests. There's so many wetlands, bogs, marshes in Newfoundland and Labrador. Why is it so important to save this? If there's so much, why is it so important to put this effort in to saving stuff?
Right. Well, especially when you're talking about in a municipality, like Zach said, there's so many different jurisdictions that come into play, but ultimately it's that municipality and that council that's managing for their citizens and residents that live there. So, just from my perspective, where we're focused on wetlands.
Yep.
People, like you said, there's lots of wetlands all across Newfoundland. You might not have so many in your little municipality, right? So there's a couple perspectives. Some people might look at it and say, well, what are we talking about bogs for? Why is this important?
And you hear
bogs
that, right?
all over the place.
Tons of them.
Right.
Newfoundland's one big bog.
Yeah. So
where it's not rock, it's bog. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So the issue is if you're a municipality that's, say, outside of St. John's, and I mean just outside of St. John's, you're probably not hooked onto the St. John's water supply, which means you're on wells and septic. So that boring old bog then becomes probably one of the most important pieces of infrastructure you have on the land, because that's replenishing your aquifers, that's helping with your flood mitigation, that's helping with drought mitigation, that's purifying those waters.
It's your filter system, right?
That's right. Replenishing the aquifers that are going to fill the wells ultimately. So especially with the increase in temperatures and whatnot, that becomes super important. So a lot of the work we've been doing has been working with municipalities to just explain to them, this is what these wetlands actually do, and that's just some of the services, like municipal services. There's also all the habitat services that come into it as well. So I've found with the people we've worked with, once you point that out to them, they recognize the importance, and then they say, okay, great. Now, how do we protect it? What do we do next? So we'll provide them with the ones that we have assessed, so at least they know where some of the wetlands are. The next step is usually, if you can, is to get mapping, or failing that, changes to their, say, engineering guidelines, for example, in the case of Torbay, or zoning use, which could be, okay, if you want to develop around a wetland, you need to delineate the wetland, know exactly where it is. We'll then review it at council and decide whether there should be buffers, whether we're going to let you in there or not, or whether that's even something to do, right? And then the other one that we'll do is throw it over to Sam, or recommend that they talk to them about protecting the ones that we've identified as particularly significant. They sign a stewardship agreement with that municipality, and then that triggers another side of oversight when it comes to developing in those particular wetlands. So it's kind of small scale in theory, but you're still helping to preserve important pieces of ecosystem.
I was looking at Ducks Unlimited prepping for the show today, or the website, and this is something that was posted. It's a 2022 quote from. It's called "From a Climate Reckoning: The Economic Cost of BC's Extreme Weather in 2021." This is by Mark Lee and Ben Parfit. Today's extreme weather is a prelude to what we should anticipate in the future. Events that were previously considered improbable or less damaging are now part of the realm of the possible. Heat waves will come, forests will burn, rivers and valleys will flood, and other extreme storms form our new baseline. Now, 2021, right? 2025. Now, this, like everything I just said, is like, just look at the news from this summer. It's all there.
Yep.
And then below it, it talks about investing in wetland infrastructure. And the question, this is such a good site. So Ducks Unlimited, folks. But here's the question:
Why are a long time,
right? Why are wetlands important for wildfire management? Prioritizing watershed health, including wetlands, has a crucial role in disaster resilience for communities. Wetlands help mitigate wildfires as they are less vulnerable to burning and provide water sources for both firefighting and recovery efforts. They also provide fire refuge for wildlife and fire mammals. I mean, that's just one little nugget. There's a bunch of other questions there, which folks you could Google and look up yourselves, and also pay attention to the rest of this conversation. But just those nuggets there to lay on top of the conversation we're having today, because it's summer, I have wildfires on the brain.
Yeah, I was formerly a wildfire forest firefighter as well. So
right,
you may not think that a wetland is going to produce a whole bunch of water for fighting that fire, but a tiny little hole with a little bit of water, and you can put your feeder tube in there, and it'll run all day.
Yeah, and also even like the delays that it can pose too, right? Like the little bit of just a little bit as to stand in the way of something, right? As opposed to like for
slow
the work
it down.
that's being done to slow it down.
A forest fire will go where it wants to go if it's big enough.
Yeah.
But we were out on wetlands even last week and noted, oh man, like this is really dry, but no more than 4 inches down, it's damp and cool again.
So
we're seeing, like, we're talking about the value of wetlands and how important they are. The term natural asset often comes up because it's an asset for the municipality, but it's a natural asset. So they can generate, it provides ecosystem services instead of the municipality having to outfit those costs of municipal wastewater treatment. The wetland is just going to start filtering that and absorb that. But we're also, in terms of context of climate change, we're seeing more heat waves and it's a hot summer. We're having water advisories. Multiple municipalities are putting out those water advisories. And yet Newfoundland, where we're just one big bog, we're one big wetland, we are limiting our access to water because of development in the watershed, on the water table. So that's just the value of our own drinking water as municipalities, as people needing that service, needing that water to drink.
So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and in the city of St. John's, of course, in the capital city, I mean, we just went through that exercise of wetland delineation because it was so extremely important. The conversation historically has shifted. I mean, we see people who are natural environmentalists, people who really are outdoor lovers and have an understanding of the value of the land. And then, of course, in cities or municipalities, then you have to, weigh out the balancing act, as we talked about, between development and where's permissible. And I remember, like many years ago, we had an issue on the Synod Anglican wetland that came, and it became a very contentious issue at council, and it became quite clear that we needed to mine in and really go in and identify. So not only were we going to be able to protect these areas that were considered wetlands or significant ecological areas, but it also it sent a message to the developers so that they'd actually understand where they can and cannot develop. And I think that's a really important conversation to have, especially in an urban setting.
Yeah, and with climate change, so often we talk about mitigation, right, which is lowering greenhouse emissions and that kind of a thing, and we talk about adaptation, right? Things like managed retreat, like moving back from the coast, and how do we make it so that we're burning less electricity, insulating homes better, but it doesn't really sound. It's not really adaptation to just build smarter and to look before you build. That's just a little bit of a process in the beginning. I know it might fall under adaptation, but it just sounds like a let's take another look, but we don't really have to adapt anything, just build in a different place and look at the reality of what is here.
And that's why the term sustainability, I think, has arisen, right? Instead of going from environmental to sustainability, because we're talking about retrofitting houses so that, not only are they safer, they, have less carbon footprint, but they're also more economical. So, I mean, it's a win-win-win situation.
And not built in a flood zone, and you're paying attention to, and you're not, bulldozing a bog in order for a new development, which could also cause flooding or also use issues with the water table. All of that in the conversation.
Low cost. It's such a low barrier.
It's like smarter building, is it?
Yeah.
Is that? It's like you're building smarter because of the reality of where we are.
Yeah, because of what they do. It becomes invaluable. So if you remove one of those wetlands to build something, well, the water still wants to go where it was going before.
That's right.
And the other factor that comes into play is, well, now you've got more pressure on your gray infrastructure, your manufactured infrastructure, when you have that giant storm. We've been lucky that we haven't had that set up, that gigantic storm like they had in Halifax a couple of years back. Yeah. But when you do get a scenario like that, it's those wetlands that naturally help to absorb the large part of the brunt before it hits the infrastructure.
Folks, as you're listening, if you've got thoughts on conservation in Newfoundland and Labrador, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Email us, thesignal@cbc.ca. We've had a city perspective ongoing, right, for the capital city, for the province. Let's get a town perspective. Councillor Heidi Kolodnitsky is on the line. Councillor, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks. So you're also with Sam, the person that's not a person, on the chair of the board of directors. Tell us about your experience as a councillor, being the chair of, and being on the chair of the board of directors for Sam.
Oh, my experience has been phenomenal. I mean, the service to my town that I'm able to provide now, not just as a councillor, but my involvement on Sam, it has been doubled. My involvement with Sam enables me to know all the things conservation, and I bring all of that information and support from the organization back to my town, and that has massively informed us, particularly as we've been updating our town plan the past few years.
So what's been updated? What needs updating with Pauline and when you look ahead under this climate conservation file? Oh, we just lost the line. We're gonna call the councillor back in a second. When live radio show, phone lines, gremlins and systems. We'll call her back and get the answer to that question. Let me go. Just go ahead.
I was just going to say my introduction to Stewardship Association Municipalities began with rural communities and just seeing the excellent work that was happening in smaller towns. And I think it's in Grand Falls, I believe, it's the
Corduroy Brook, yeah.
Corduroy Brook. So I remember one of the board meetings were there. I attended, and I was just so amazed at how wonderful the town actually created around this significant area, this wetland, a conservation area, a beautiful boardwalk that had so many different facets to it. It was about ecological sensitivity and protection and conservation, but it was about creating a space where people could really get out and enjoy and engage the environment, and so tourism, etc.
Yeah, I think part of that is the community side of thing. We're all experience. We're all out in the environment. That's what it's about, is getting the community out to also enjoy that, experience it, and then how we can sharing and being in that sense of place. It encourages a lot of that ethical understanding of stewardship.
We've got the councillor back on the line. Councillor Kolodnitsky, how you doing?
Good. Sorry about that.
Don't worry, it happens.
Call just dropped, as they do.
They do. There's a whole other show that I need to get back to doing again on connectivity in Newfoundland and Labrador. We've done them before, but you can always do another one because the issue is still ever present. But go ahead, just on when you like Pauline and what some of the changes and the look forward is in your community.
Well, as I was mentioning, we are updating our town plan, and like every decade or so, you want to update your town plan and zone things appropriately, and et cetera, et cetera. So being on SAM has really been a huge help in this regard. We've been able to have conservation biologists come in, look at the land, be able to tell us what it's doing, and that research informs our town plan and our land use planning. And as was mentioned, all of that goes towards supporting our clean drinking water supply, clean air quality. The list goes on.
There's always different reactions that we get when we have conversations with different people in communities. What are some of the reactions, or what's the perception around this been for this journey of learning that's been happening with Pauline for folks that you talk to?
The perception is overall, it's, people are often like tentative. They're nervous about change.
That's normal.
Which is totally fair. But ultimately, I think it's about trust. And I feel like in my community anyways, there's a strong sense of trust surrounding this type of information that's coming towards them. SAM is a very reputable organization, and we've also been supporting the town since we became a member in 2015. So education goes a really long way. SAM comes in and they do a ton of workshops and support our summer camp every year. And, the kids go home and they tell their parents all about the conservation and the birds that they learned about and the bees and everything. And all of that builds a really positive vibe around all of it. And so it's easier to accept and digest that change, I think, when it's coming from a friend.
Yeah. There's municipal elections coming up. Not to put you on the spot, but are you still going to be involved municipally? Is this something you're still going to be digging into?
Yeah, it'd be funny if the call just dropped right here.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Yes, I am. I am still planning on being involved and on pursuing the environmental and conservation lane.
Yeah.
I know more now than I did when I first started, and so now I'm even more, fired up about it, about all those ecological services and nature-based solutions, and conservation being the proverbial low-hanging fruit for municipalities.
Yeah.
And in their climate action, mitigation, adaptation, whatever it is, all of that, let's go for it.
Councillor, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Heidi.
All right, Hailey Koloniski there. Let's go back to Graham Wood for a second, then we've got a call. Graham, how are you doing hanging out there on FaceTime? Any thoughts
Good.
on the conversation here? Anything you want to build on or add to?
Well, I think one of the things that, when Sheila mentioned about the difficulties, and I mentioned about the difficulties of moving forward, I think one thing we have to all realize, at least what we deal with in terms of Crown lands across the province, is that we have to have the involvement of Indigenous groups.
Here, here.
And the fact is that we have met. In fact, our recent meeting, we met with Chief Jenny Brake, and we've met with the new chief in Halipoo Nation. Yeah, and they have a reserve that they've been talking. You're probably aware of Charlie's Place, which is on the south side of Gander Lake, and has been spearheaded by Justin Hodge and the Halipoo Nation, Glenwood, I'll say Glenwood, Gander Bay area, right? Every time we deal with any of these particular proposed reserves, we have to involve our Indigenous groups in the province. And I think that's a very important part. Certainly in Labrador, it's extremely important. And, hopefully, I know back in the early 2000s, we went to Labrador and talked about a variety of areas that they were interested in protecting in Labrador. But as you know, with land claims and those issues, they have a tendency to take time for that.
Yeah.
But there was a proposal. There's a proposal in for example, the Eagle River Park, Provincial Park, and I'm not sure how far along that is. That's a different department, but protection of the Eagle River system. But when we look at Fushu Bay on the south coast, we have a lot of indigenous areas and concerns there, and they want to actually extend or enlarge in that particular proposed ecological reserve to take some traditional territory and burial grounds there, as well as Conn River North. They want to extend that one to include the eagle burial there on Conn River Pond. Mm-hmm. So there's so many other areas that same with the West Coast when we look at Cape St. George and other areas that Halapu are interested in. So, there's one thing that we have to always be realizing that's important involving Indigenous groups,
listening,
especially when we look at protecting areas.
Yeah.
And they are protectors of the land. There's no question about that. Their whole modus operandi is to actually protect the ecosystems in this province.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, you're going to say it, Deputy Mayor?
I was actually going to circle back to something Graham said earlier about the COVID times and how there was a really interesting kind of turn that happened. It's like this newfound appreciation that people have had, about getting out and enjoying nature. And I think that we're feeling it again in regards to this U.S.-Canada, tariff, kind of war that's happening. People are, starting to go, they're reevaluating, like some do in their jobs, how they are living their lives and how they're engaging in their communities and the natural world. And I have personally met a number of people who've moved here from across the country and the United States who are they've just had enough of the noise, and they really want to come to Newfoundland and Labrador because they see the beautiful natural environment here. And that is something that we really, really need to keep our eye on, how important, how wonderful, how privileged we are.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's we've got two folks on the line right now. We'll go to Michael Murray on line one. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Not bad. How are you today, Adam?
Good, good. I was going to send you a picture of my raised bed the other day, but I'll wait for next time you're in the studio. But it's going like gangbusters, sir. But you're not calling to talk about gardening. You're talking about wetlands and conservation as the chair of the advisory committee of the environment for Portugal Cove, St. Phillips. Hit us with your thoughts.
Yeah, well, we're here in Portugal Cove, St. Phillips. We're encountering similar problems. It seems, that development appears to be the priority, and protecting or limiting encroachments or infringements on environmentally sensitive areas is very low on the priority list. We've had a number of issues here in our own community where there's a development now being considered under conditional approvals to put a substantial 34 houses in a place that is a black spruce bog. So, I'm delighted to see that Sam's here talking about education, but you got to have the right tools to educate. And these are the things that we're seeing is the mapping that government is using is inaccurate. It doesn't clearly show buffers. There's a lack of field inspections that should take place whenever there is an infringement by an applicant to put something in an environmentally sensitive area like a buffer around a pond or stream or a wetland. And if you don't have accurate mapping, then having boots on the ground, field inspections to verify where things are in real time, then, we're only kidding ourselves. So it's really important that our staff is trained, but that they have the right tools. And that they're encouraged to get out and get boots on the ground to start doing some field inspection. I think staff generally are not well trained in our smaller municipalities to cope with these issues. And I also think that, again, the priority is develop, because that's where the tax base is perceived, but not much thought about the environment or the value of the environment. That's the other thing is we tend to think that in terms of priorities, housing developments have a much higher priority than protecting wetlands or other parts of our environment, which serve as recreational space, tourism activities, and I think we're kind of blinded by the fact that we're not paying attention to that development process a little better.
Michael Murray, thanks for those thoughts. I'll put it to the guests here. I appreciate your call as always.
Thank you.
All right, so folks, if you've got thoughts on what Michael was saying, just put a pin in it for a second, because we're going to go to Glenn Sharp, who is on the line as well. Hi, Glenn. How are you? On line 4, I think. Glenn Sharp, how you doing? Hello. I feel like we're almost there. We're just working our way through to Glenn. Hi, Glenn. How are you? Or not? We'll keep trying to get Glenn here on the line. And oh, there you are. I knew we're digging a tunnel to you, and I feel that we're on the other side here. How are you?
Very good.
Good. So you're a wetland engineer, right?
Yes, I've designed the wetland treatment systems that are at Stephenville, Bishop Falls, Apple and Glenwood, full town systems designed for wastewater treatment using engineered wetlands.
Right on. And how's all that going?
Very good. They've won awards, and they're providing treatment to very high standards, and we're looking at installing more and doing more work if the province can get some funds to build more treatment systems.
So then where are we with that? And what are they telling you?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see anything in the current budget for any work for us on wastewater treatment. However, we're always hopeful of trying to generate work and find solutions, but right now there doesn't seem to be anything for us to bid on this year.
Why do you think that is? Because if what you're doing is important work and it's natural infrastructure that's usable for municipalities and for preserving things, do you think? On the list of priorities and for what needs to be done in the province under waste, why do you think they're not pushing forward on it?
I'd like to see applications go forward, obviously, but as an engineer reviewing the overall priorities and so forth, I understand that the government's got to put its priorities on drinking water systems. They're also not up to standard in lots of communities, and wastewater maybe becomes a secondary to drinking water. But that being said, we have a lot of need for wastewater treatment in our province. We have hundreds of communities that discharge effluent into the bays without treatment, but without the provincial funding to match the federal funding, towns can't go forward. So I think it's a provincial funding issue to a large degree, but also these can be large cost items. Our wetlands sell generally for one of the lowest cost options, but when you're treating wastewater, it is a costly expense. So towns themselves don't have the monies and funds to go forward.
What kind of a difference, once one of these projects is completed, what kind of a difference do you see? And for just to give folks a real understanding of the before and after contrast on this.
Well, the Appleton Glenwood system that's built on the Gander River, we did an extensive review of the Gander River prior to the system going in, where an old mechanical system had been installed. The trouble with mechanical systems, they need a lot of operation costs and maintenance to keep them running. So that system that had been installed, gradually the costs of maintenance got so much, they stopped maintaining it, and it really wasn't working and was in basically a bypass mode. And when we went down the Gander River, you had slime and what looked like toilet paper, but deposited on the sides of the river for miles down the river. And really it wasn't paper at all. It was algae that had come out of the river with higher water conditions and been left on the branches of bushes and shrubs and then dried out and looked like a white paper. But it was actually green algae that was growing in the river because of the high nutrient levels, because the sewage wasn't treated. So that was all cleaned up, after our wetland system went in. And we have many reports from guides that work the Gander River as salmon guides explaining the difference, that the ropes are no longer covered in slime and they could see to the bottom of the river, and how nice it was to see a treatment system installed that cleaned up the river.
Right. Folks, anything for Glenn before?
Yeah, no, I've actually, Glenn and I know each other. Hi, Glenn, and he's been doing great work across the province, no doubt. And of course, for the city of St. John's, of course, we have, a major infrastructure happening there in terms of our wastewater treatment. And of course, we know that we have to up the ante as per federal requirements. So we have a much more complex kind of system. But, even in city of St. John's, there are potentially opportunities where some kind of engineered wetland system could be a complementary component. So I think, there are different situations for different municipalities for sure, but I have seen Glenn's success certainly with this right across the province at many of our MNL conferences and such, where oftentimes we meet up.
Any final thoughts or points to make on this today, Glenn?
Yes, well, thank you, Sheila. I appreciate that, and I would love to sit down sometime in the future and talk about some applications for the city of St. John's. I'd like to mention that your natural wetlands that are being protected now more and more are the natural filters of our ecosystem, and they hold the water and they treat the water. That's where the design of our engineered wetland systems came from originally in Germany, was them seeing natural systems providing treatment, and then going through that we've come to a design now that we can sell for a full wastewater treatment. But it's the natural protection of our waterways and our wetlands that I feel should be entrenched to protect our overall ecology of small rural towns as well as large municipal sectors. So I just wanted to make that comment and congratulate those people that are striving to do that and putting things in place for that.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Glenn Sharp there, wetland engineer. Guys, Zach, Michelle, thoughts on either what Michael Murray said or what Glenn Sharp had to say?
Well, with what Michael was saying, I think one of the things that comes up with municipalities a lot of times is capacity is the main limiter. So
that's what I wrote down here too.
You got it. There you go.
You guys on the same page, literally.
We're usually on the same page. Yeah,
Shocker.
The two of us. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the main issue. So I know at one point, Balene's a great example of what a smaller community can do with the right people pushing it forward. I mean, it's Heidi and I think maybe a couple other people on that council, and then with Heidi as the main driver.
And two staff people in Bolene, something like that.
Yeah, and we went in and did wetland assessments for them and informed that and gave Heidi the document, and from that she's great and told me she waves it at people whenever they want to do developments and whatnot. So, which I thought was fantastic. But you can do it. But yeah, some of the issues when it comes to, trying to okay a development or balancing those two things, I think he's absolutely right that enforcement is a big side of it, because it's one thing for me or whoever else to give recommendations to a municipality about, well, if you did this, this would do this, and you'd ensure that this would happen. But the problem is, well, who do we have that knows enough about this to go out there and watch these guys and make sure that they're doing that at these stages of the development, right? To mitigate those impacts. So
for, like you said, for towns across Newfoundland and Labrador, where some places it might be a clerk, right? And then you've got your council, and then expecting them to know everything that there is to know about running a town and a council, and then development and the environmental climate wetland side of it, when you're just like, well, I wanted to help out my town, and this is not in my wheelhouse. Yeah,
I think that's an extremely big difficulty, a big hurdle for municipalities to overcome. Michael, talked about the inefficiency of mapping or the lack of mapping, wetland mapping here, and I think I agree, but then not necessarily. The municipalities don't have that capacity to go. Not every municipality has a capacity to go out and assess those wetlands. Where Michelle's talking about having other entities support that process. So this is where partnerships and engaging other ENGOs and other entities in that process can support that municipality. But it's also mapping. The inefficiency of mapping goes back to like private land in our province and the Great Fire that happened, and then that just the wiping out some records and things like that, and just then the who has jurisdiction over the land. So being aware of just different entities and then not having those records updated always accurate for you to do those analysis. So it's yes, there's an inefficiency in a challenge of mapping, but then also it's complemented by the capacity of the municipalities who don't have that infrastructure, don't have that funds to do that when it is lacking.
Let's. We've got Peter Whittle on the line for what we've got. Like Peter, we've got 1 minute for this. I need to get a closing comment for each of my guests. But what's your quick thought for towards the end of the show?
My quick comment was more for the deputy mayor. I just wanted to raise the issue, the terrible national disgrace, which is the Robin Hood dump, in particular the odors that residents of the East End have to put up with that have not been addressed. I know a lot of money's gone into trying to address it. And secondly, more importantly, is the leachate, all the dangerous chemicals that are basically transported by the sewer system down to the new Riverhead system and then go into the harbor. They're not treated or anything, just chlorine, but chlorine doesn't kill, the mercuries and all the hazardous chemicals. They go directly into the harbor. And I'd like to see council finally make a decision on doing what was in the budget for the original proposal when Robin Hood Bay was chosen to be the new regional facility. There was $5 million in that budget to collect that leachate and treat it on site to direct it so it wasn't going into the ocean any longer. Well, now all they've done is shipped it down to the harbor. And, we're cleaning up the harbor. If we're talking about environment and long-term sustainability, why are we putting hazardous materials into the harbor every day?
Peter Whittle, thank you so much for that. We're almost out of time, so Deputy Mayor, I'll go back to you.
Thank you, Peter, for bringing that forward. There's ongoing dialogue about these issues all the time. Of course, we've gone from, our waste going directly into the harbor to many, many different layers now. And you're right, there are better ways that we can continue to develop. And Peter, I'd certainly encourage you to reach out to me. My time on council is limited now. I've done everything that I possibly can over the duration that I've been there, but certainly send something along, and I can certainly find out what the status is on that. I'd be more than happy to try to at least get an update on where we are with that plan. All right, thank you.
Graham Wood on the line. Final thoughts for you. We're going to go 30 seconds to everyone because we're almost up to the wall.
Well, all I want to say is that when we hold public hearings and public meetings like we had with Hall's Gully and Ripple Pond, that we encourage everybody to come out and share their thoughts, their concerns, and their questions. That really the whole goal for WIRAC and the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, my understanding is that we want people to be able to access those protected areas in a responsible way, continue to do traditional activities. And the main thing that we're trying to do in order to protect those sensitive ecosystems, the variety that we have, the 19 different ecoregions that we have in the province, is to make sure that we keep them in perpetuity and as clean and as sustainable as possible.
Thank you, Graham. Michelle Ungurain, Ducks Unlimited, your final thoughts? 15 seconds.
Just if there's any municipalities that do want to work with us with some of our wetland assessments that we do and reports we provide for them, feel free to reach out because that's something we're pushing forward in the future as well.
Zach Burrows, Sam.
Conservation of land is free and easy. So if you just leave it alone, it's an easy approach, and there are leaders all across this province that are trying to enact conservation, and it's just supporting and recognizing those leaders.
Sheila Leary, 15 seconds.
Huge shout out to our partners here, our sustainability team at City of St. John's. And of course, we have the task of balancing a housing crisis with sustainability. That is a big challenge, but you know what? We can do it.
All right. Thank you, folks, for the conversation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. The conversation continues every day here on The Signal, thesignal@cbc.ca for emails. Bell Island. Folks, we're coming out tomorrow. Wabana will be in your neck of the woods at the museum talking everything about the community, all things. Ambitions, history, some frustrations, some things to brag about. You name it tomorrow on Bell Island if we can get there. Cheers.